Today's top picks from Reuters Breakingviews. A move to Hong Kong could make sense for Pru, and China may have to get used to monthly trade deficits. With me to talk about these stories, Chris Hughes. Morning to you, Chris. Morning. All right, prudential in Hong Kong, is that realistic? As a base?
It actually is realistic. Now, normally when you hear these companies threatening or giving the impression of threatening to up sticks and leave their Western jurisdiction to go east, you kind of think, well, they're just saying that because they don't like regulation and they're essentially kind of lobbying, and they never really do it.
But that's the premise of this, isn't it?
Well,
they don't like Solvency II regulation.
They don't like it, but actually the numbers here are quite convincing. I mean, potentially Pru could be looking at sort of 1.4 billion pound kind of difference between the capital it needs to hold, whether it's based in London or in Hong Kong. So it can't, it's got a fiduciary duty. It's got to consider those aspects. And there's a lot of hassle to moving, just the relocation, the actual process is very fiddly. But the bottom line is that Solvency II in Europe is going to be very, very costly for European insurers, and so it's quite natural that Pru would consider it. So
and David Cameron's made a comment as well, hasn't he? He said he called the regulation ill thought out.
Well, it's been pretty unpopular for a long time, and it's gone through a lot of iterations as well. So it may be that actually what we're seeing right now with Solvency II isn't the last word, right? But we think in this case, with a lot of institutions, particularly with the banks, when they talk about doing this kind of thing, you kind of it's quite easy actually to unpick.
It doesn't make any difference to the customer, though, does it, for Pru?
Well, if a company has got essentially a higher cost base, whether that's due to the cost of capital or labour costs or anything else, then potentially it makes a difference to the customer because it affects the price at which they can.
Sorry, actually, what I meant was that a potential move to Hong Kong would not make a difference for the customer.
Well, I mean, it would change the centre of gravity in a sort of rather more visible way. I mean, clearly, Pru's business, its real growth, has for a long time come from Asia. It's always been actually the main rationale for buying Pru shares, which is the amazing Asian growth story. But it's still actually been a UK institution, a UK investment institution. This move would actually change the company through and through. So it could ultimately change, change the kind of business it does.
Okay, $4.2 billion trade deficit in the first 2 months of 2012 for China. Exports to Europe, of course, were hit. You're saying this isn't a one-off. You're saying this is, or Edward Haddis is saying they better get used to this. We're going to see more deficits.
Well, Wei-Gu and Edward Haddis are looking at this, and I mean, it's firstly, it's remarkable the idea of a Chinese trade deficit. I mean, the big criticism, if you like, globally with China is, hang on a moment, well, why don't you, instead of sort of exporting to the world, why don't you, buy some more stuff in and essentially end this rather unequal relationship? And now, actually, what you're seeing is China having a deficit. So actually, it's not been able to export as much as it was importing. Now, you can say this, and this is a very rare thing to see, but partly, as you say, it's European weakness, but we don't think it's just a sort of one-off. I mean, actually what's going on is a rather welcome transition in China's economy. They're actually, rather than just sort of, import some sort of cheap parts, package them together and then export it out again. You're seeing more kind of value added. The country is maturing. Obviously, labour costs are going up. The old kind of dynamic in terms of just importing stuff to export it straight out again is changing. So this is a sort of structural shift we're probably seeing. So this isn't a one-off by any means.
All right, thanks, Chris. You can find those stories on the Breakingviews website and Reuters.com. For more agenda-setting financial insight, watch our US Breakingviews show every day, 12:30 Eastern, 17:30 GMT. I'm Axel Threlfall. This is Reuters.